welcome to Dialogue. Called by Chinese President Xi Jinping as a founding father of Timor-Leste and a founder of the China-Timor-Leste Friendship, President José Ramos Horta has dedicated his life to serving his country for independence, development, and diplomatic progress. I'm honored to speak today with President Ramos Horta here in Singapore on the sidelines of this year's Shangri-La Dialogue to find the answers to the important questions. What are the most pressing security issues for the region? What is the progress in China-Timor-Leste cooperation and also Timor-Leste's pursuit of official ASEAN membership? And how significant is the first ever ASEAN GCC China Summit for the Asia-Pacific region and beyond? Join me for my discussion in Singapore with Timor-Leste President José Ramos Horta. That's our topic. I'm Xu Qinduo. Mr. President, welcome to our show. And we talked to you last year. And then, of course, this year we are here to cover again the Shangri-La Dialogue. So I wonder, how do you look at the topics? What are the highlights of this year's dialogue?
Well, on my part, as President of Timor-Leste, we bring here good news in a sense. A country remains very peaceful. We have zero political violence, zero ethnic-based or religious-based tensions and violence. We have zero organized crime. We do not have drug trafficking, money laundering, and the country is growing economically in spite of global challenges, difficulties, investors coming and increasing. And in the last summit, ASEAN leaders in Kuala Lumpur, Timor-Leste was admitted formally as ASEAN full member. The ceremonial for the formal accession will be in October. But the decision was already made unanimously by the head of state and governments meeting just a few days ago in Kuala Lumpur. So that's good news. We become a full member of ASEAN, a community of 700 million people almost, and several $1 trillion joint GDP.
So becoming a full member of ASEAN, of course, you will be, let's say, we will be more sensitive to the regional security, regional development. We know like the Shangri-La Dialogue is about security, in particular regional security in the Asia-Pacific region we are talking about. And how do you look at the situation, the landscape, in this region?
The situation generally in the Asia-Pacific region, in Asia, it's cause for serious concern. We recently had the flare-up between India and Pakistan, the ongoing political, social tensions in Bangladesh, the ongoing conflict in Myanmar, and the concerns over the unpredictability of international trade tensions with imposition of incredibly high tariffs by the US on ASEAN countries, on China, and on most countries in the world. And that is really a shock and cause a lot of disruptions. And so that is a very negative development compared with a year ago, the last Shangri-La Dialogue. And nothing indicates the situation can improve. And We're still facing with the ongoing war in Ukraine, the ongoing catastrophe in Gaza, with implications for the whole region. So the world situation is very serious, that has many ramifications in economic, financial, trade, and that impact on the lives of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people.
So this year also marks this 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. And also people would say this is also 80th anniversary in the sense of the building of the existing international order, international system since the end of the World War II. Many people are concerned whether we are able to preserve such an existing system where we have a rules-based order. Countries do conduct affairs and businesses following rules rather than resorting to unilateral approaches.
Well, the UN system, which we all created in 1945, it expanded, and there were many reforms along the way to adapt the UN to the different periods of history. I personally served with the UN. I was Under Secretary General, Special Representative of Secretary General in West Africa, and I know the UN inside out. I was also chair of a UN panel called High Level Independent Panel on the United Nations Peace Operations. That was 2014, 2016. I serve on a board called High Level Board on Mediation under Secretary General Antonio Guterres, 2017, 2019. So I know the UN evolved over the years, improving over the years. It made reforms to adapt itself to the growing challenges in the world. But it needs the major powers, the P5 in the Security Council, the permanent 5, but also the other 10, the rest of the countries that might not be in the Security Council, everybody to contribute to make the UN even more effective in preventing conflicts, in mediating conflicts, in assisting refugees, in helping restoring democracy or restoring states function in many countries. All of this is now in disarray with U.S. sudden disengagement, and very difficult for anyone to replace the U.S. alone, because it is an undeniable economic and military superpower.
Yes, of course, the U.S. is also retreating sort of from the European continent and trying to end the Ukraine conflict and withdraw the military presence from some European countries, and they are trying to be focused on this region, of course, with the mind of some would say containing the rise of China, or U.S. would say competing with China. They have this Indo-Pacific strategy since 2022. They have built Quad, the system, and also AUKUS with a strong military element there. Are you concerned that with increasing military assistance, military presence here, with the competition, increasingly fierce competition with China, that will impact the regional security here?
The more you militarize a region with military presence of all sorts, many countries, the risks for conflict, even accidental, much higher. So with all the new alliances set up by the US UK, Australia, Japan, South Korea, with India. All of these aiming obviously at China is very unwelcoming. We, a small country, we see only from outside, from the periphery, but we know every time there is a war, like it happened with the war in Ukraine, it disrupts international trade, the supply chain, food supplies, totally disrupted, stop, or when you, even if you restore it, prices skyrocket. So that impact on the lives of tens, hundreds of millions of people. So even though countries like Timor-Leste, we are not obviously involved in any of these rivalries or wars, we, like more than 100 countries in the global south, we are affected negatively.
And we'll talk more about, of course, the ICM standing in the middle. But let's take a look at your the visit last year. I think last July, you were in Beijing, and Chinese President Xi Jinping, of course, he said, "You are a founding father of Timor-Leste and a founder of China-Timor-Leste friendship." He also said the first state visit to China by a Timor-Leste president is of a great historical significance. So
yes,
it's a successful visit.
I was very, very pleased with the visit, very grateful to President Xi Jinping, to China, for the tremendous support provided to us for ongoing Chinese commitment to the peaceful development of Timor-Leste, but also very grateful for Chinese global leadership. If the world is not worse place, it is thanks to China, in that China today is the second world economy, although it still faces its own challenges, as the Chinese side itself say. But it is a global financial, economic power, and it has helped countries across the globe. It helps in many ways. One way is direct support in terms of development assistance, grants, very low interest loans, but also providing thousands of scholarships for students to study in China. It provides medical assistance, medical equipment, building hospitals in many countries across the world. It helps in the agricultural sector to improve food output, agricultural output for many countries, including in Timor-Leste. We have a Chinese expert there who are helping us improving our rice production output, as well as all other activities. So China status as a global power, economically speaking, financially, trade-wise, very important for the world. And China is already doing a lot in helping more than 100 countries in the world.
When it comes to this bilateral relationship, we know China is investing in, of course, increasingly investing in infrastructure, healthcare, agriculture, and other areas. Infrastructure, of course, is under Belt and Road Initiative. In what way those infrastructure will help the country?
Well, let me say, Timor-Leste is not only a recipient of Chinese assistance. We have our own financial resources, and we finance many of our own projects. Almost, I would say, 80% of our infrastructure investments are paid 100% by our side. So we have sign off contracts to Chinese construction companies. And that is not a grant from China or even loan. It is Chinese companies, state companies, that bid for construction project in Timor-Leste, and because of their credibility, the price is better than others, they have won the contract. For instance, the biggest investment we have had, two biggest investments we have had so far over the years. One is the building of a new port. That was a program, a public-private partnership, engaged in Timor-Leste government, engaged in World Bank, and the French company Bolloré, more than $300 million. But who won the contract to build the port was China Harbor. China Harbor was not an investor. It was a company that did the project. They did with exceptional quality and in record time, in spite of the COVID that affected 2 years, slowed down everything. The project concluded in time. Another bigger project was electrification of the country. That only China could do it, but that was 100% paid by us. That was several $100 million, 100% from us. And many Chinese companies got the contract to put up the big tower lines. That's very difficult for anyone else to do, because they went through the high mountains, very dangerous. And no Timorese wanted to do it, no other company wanted to do, 100% done by Chinese companies. But that was financed by us 100%.
Well, a good thing is like no debt issue, at least debt issue. And earlier you mentioned about your country in the process of becoming a full member of ASEAN, or already a full member of ASEAN. What does that mean to Timor-Leste?
We have been working very hard since we applied to join ASEAN in 2011. We work very closely with ASEAN countries. First, to upgrade our infrastructures, training of our people, because it's very demanding. When we integrate in a region like ASEAN, 700 million, very dynamic region, my hope, my dream is that ASEAN becomes a bridge of dialogue. That ASEAN, with its importance, 700 million, one of the biggest economies in the world, with good relations with China, with Japan, with South Korea, with India, with the United States, ASEAN can be a bridge builder of dialogue, of consensus seeking, so that we have a more stable region, the Asia region, and actually a stable world. That's easier said than done, because we still have plenty of problems in Asia. But this is our commitment. We are new to ASEAN, so what I keep saying is that ASEAN not expecting much from us. They will be happy if Timor-Leste remains a peaceful country, that we don't become problematic like Myanmar, for instance. So if Timor stay peaceful, friendly, develop slowly, maybe, that ASEAN leaders already will be very happy. And I believe President Xi Jinping also will be very happy. Because if we fall into conflict, all the help that China gave us, or ASEAN gave us, other countries like Australia, is wasted. Our own investment is wasted. So we have to continue live in peace, in tranquility, in harmony in the country.
What kind of a role ASEAN could play, for example, to help improve or stabilize relationship between China and the United States?
ASEAN as a bloc, as a whole, is a dialogue partner with the United States, with China. The two countries are very important for ASEAN, and there are good personal relationship between the leaders of ASEAN and the leaders of China, and the United States. So that's a good starting point. And we don't have to be too ambitious in agreeing on everything. But whenever we disagree, and there are many areas of friction or disagreement, you have to be wise to pick one or two that you can solve. Because by solving one or two, you create happiness and confidence, and then you move on. Leave the more complicated ones, freeze these problems into the future. Like, for instance, maritime boundaries issues or land boundary issues. These are always more complicated, and they can be flashpoints. But look at other areas. So some of the frictions, you better, everybody agree, let's not deal with that now. Everybody freeze in your own positions, don't move more or less from each side. Agree to de-escalate military presence in some areas mutually, and focus on things that one can agree on. And to agree on, there are so many things that can agree on. And once you do that, then the climate is established to move to the more difficult ones.
Right. And speak of this, the trilateral meeting between ASEAN side, the Chinese side, and Gulf of Cooperation countries. And how important is that? People say all those countries are from the global south. People are saying global south are no longer at the receiving end, at a passive receiver, but now is becoming more active in producing initiatives, in taking issues into their own hands and grow and develop themselves. For example, in this case, of course, like a cross-regional dialogue here and cooperation.
You know, the challenge to, for instance, to the United States, I know the US reasonably well. I have the greatest respect for their resilience, for their universities, their science, technology, innovation. For 100 years, the US always led. Led in part because of science and technology, investing in education and so on. But since then, in the last 30, 40 years, other powers emerge, which is normal, it's good. You know, in the 60s, China was still very poor, mostly agriculture, but then in only 40 years, transformed itself into a technological power, into a science power, into innovation. And 40 years ago, you wouldn't see too much Chinese presence in Africa in terms of trade presence, investment presence. You didn't see much in Latin America, almost none in Europe. But today, China is everywhere. It is everywhere not because it wants land from the people, because the era of colonization, that was hundreds of years ago. And China is there as an economic presence, as a trade presence, as a helper to help some countries in agriculture, in fisheries, irrigation, in medicine. So China now is present everywhere. And you don't see Chinese military bases. That China is not looking for military bases around the world. It sends its Navy fleet, particularly hospital fleet, around the world. But that we do that, everybody does that as a goodwill introduction. So China has should continue that.
Right. How do you see the global security situation, including economic security, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, and with this liberation in tariffs, there are some pauses, but then mostly ongoing negotiation, and then the U.S. president has this "Make America First, Make America Great Again" the agenda, and how do you look at that kind of impact globally?
Well, the tariff war go against the philosophy, the principle of free trade. NAFTA helped a lot. U.S. economy helped Canada, helped Mexico. The U.S. was the champion of global free trade because at the time it had no rivals. And everybody buy American, everybody eat American, everybody want American jeans. I'm wearing one. But now they have to share the wealth of the world with China and increasingly with other countries like Brazil. If U.S. want to continue to be the #1 economy in the world, it has to invest domestically, continue to improve its universities, its science, its technology to be always #1, to provide better infrastructures in the country because American infrastructures are not very good. The train system, the public transportation system, almost non-existent. Some of the public hospitals are very run down in the United States. Millions of people are homeless. So they have to invest domestically. And the deficit, it doesn't come from trade. The deficit, and it's not necessarily negative. Deficit per se is not negative. America got indebted with so much deficit. It has to do with the war in Afghanistan. Trillions of dollars wasted there, many lives wasted in Afghanistan, in Iraq. I don't think they should blame China, they should blame Europe, because in the end, all of this liberalization of trade since WTO rules, since all the trade agreements the U.S. have done, I think has gained a lot for the U.S. Its per capita went up, its middle class went up over the years, its workers earn more money. So I think but by imposing tariffs to fix the deficit, I don't know whether that is good for the U.S. I'm not an economist, but I'm surprised with the tariff war.
Thank you, Mr. President,
Thank you
for speaking with us.
Thank you.